Our guest today in the Fast Lane has a fascinating story. He is a former New Zealand Police lead crisis negotiator. He's overseen the protection of the Prime Minister and those on the Witness Protection Program. He's worked with corrections, military and even the FBI, amongst others. He was the Principal Security Officer at the Delhi Commonwealth Games and the London Olympics. He's the author of 3 best-selling books, as a regular face and voice in media, and an expert and guide on personal resilience. Most recently, he was in the news media in regards to the Tom Phillips case, and we'll hear a little bit about that later. His name is Lance Burdett, and he is with us here today. Welcome, Lance.
Thank you, Simon.
I hope I got all that right.
You make me sound something special, but yeah, that term expert, I don't like expertise. I don't mind, but yeah, no one's ever an expert.
Right. Okay.
No, I don't. I've got.
That's not just modesty.
No. I believe that. Well, you as soon as arrogance comes before a fall, not pride. And when we think that we're an expert at something, life tends to come along and give us a bit of a shake-up.
Mm. Well, that is true, and that is probably quite a deep thought to start off the discussion with, but we'll probably come to more of that sort of thinking soon. But generally, you have had a fascinating career, even if you sort of shy away from the word expert, and one that you're now using to guide others through the concept of personal resilience, which has relevance to everyone. Before we get into that, though, this is an MTA podcast, so let's find out a little bit more about Lance, the driver. First of all, are you familiar with MTA, the big blue badge?
Yep, absolutely, MTA. I know it well, thank you.
Fantastic. That would have been a very short end to the podcast if you'd never heard of MTA. We'd probably be cutting it right there, but we can continue.
I've done work with the MTA. And with MTA, so I've been involved for a while.
Indeed. So, first of all, are you a car lover generally, or are you an A to B man?
No, I'm a car lover. I do love cars. Can I put it out there, the brand I like?
Certainly.
I'm a Ford.
Right.
Yeah, I had a Holden, was my first car, and it was the biggest rust bucket piece of dirt, and my second car was a Ford Capri. And I fell in love with Fords and never looked back. Was that the sort of professionals Ford Capri? It was the professionals Ford Capri. I had the smaller one, the 2 litre, rather than the 3 litre V6.
Which would have been enough, though, 2 litre.
It was great. Best car I ever owned.
Thirsty?
Yeah, a little. It had twin carbs and all the get up and go in it. Yeah, but I felt like I was a superstar.
And did you have the professionals theme song?
I played it. It was on my cassette deck.
Yeah, awesome cassette deck. Quite right. Yeah, there's the full Bodie and Doyle treatment. And I'm guessing you probably had some fairly exciting driver training in your previous line of work.
I did. So apart from being in the just the normal driving that we would do, the pursuit type driving that you do in your training, I went on to become and I undertook the course of a protection officer. Now, to do that, a lot of driving is involved. So we went to Manfield Raceway and learned some speed driving, and then we went to Hakia Air Base and did some driving in vehicles, and we had to line they rented vehicles, and we had to line them all with special padding, and off we went, and we were spinning them around and coming out with guns and shooting paintballs and
good fun.
Learning that. It was the best course I've ever done. So I've done some advanced driving there. I've been involved in motorcades, so motorcade pilot driver, which is another unique skill to have, and driving in motorcades. So yeah, I'm a driver. I can't drive. Let's just put that out there. I'm a hopeless driver and I'm an angry driver.
Okay, an angry driver.
I am, unfortunately, and I'm learning to get rid of that.
Okay, give me an example. What triggers and how do you react?
Can I
just say, if tailgating is the trigger, I fully understand and forgive you.
That's not too bad for me. It's the people that come in and just cut in front of me.
Mm.
It does my head in.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I give them a friendly wave and a flash of the lights and a few other things.
You probably don't utilise all the fingers in that friendly
No, it's just it's a friendly little wave.
Fair enough. Did you ever have to put that training into practice, though? Were you ever in some sort of situations where you needed it?
Never.
Really?
No, never. And unfortunately or fortunately, it's a bit like crisis negotiating. You train and train and train and hope never to use it, but you want to use it. And one of the things going to these jobs that we go to, there's always a bit of a challenge of who's going to be the lead negotiator. because it's once you're trained and once it works, you realise how it happens. You just want to be. And when I became, first of all, in charge of the Auckland team, and I'd still be on the roster and go out, I was always sort of, oh, you're the boss. So I wasn't allowed to do them. So when I got the opportunity, it's a challenge you take on, and it really is. So, and it's the same as any tactical unit. You know, you train and train and train for this. You really want to use it, but hope you never need to.
Yeah.
And when you do need to, everything falls into place. So
you would have done the full range of training, firearms, self-defence, all the rest of it, right?
All the injury stuff, and trained with firearms. And in fact, that protection officer's course, 1 day on the range, it's a full day, and you're continually loading the Glock pistols and the firearms, and so you end up with the skin coming off and you have to put plasters on you.
Right.
And you fire so much that you're just sick of guns at the end of it, which is kind of a pretty cool thing to talk about, but you do get sick of it. But the skills that I learned there, not just in using a firearm, the skills of the ability to focus, the ability to slow your brain, to slow the breathing, to just till it become automatic, to overcome that fight or flight. You never overcome it, but you learn to work with it.
And I know that's a lot to do with the work you do now that you're involved in, so we'll come to that. But this might sound like a really weird question, but are you a gun person? Was that something you had an interest in? Yeah.
No, yes. Look, I'm sorry to interrupt you with that, but I hate guns.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate them. Here's a little known fact that I was in Crime Squad. A Crime Squad in Auckland Central Police Station, they're not there anymore, but they carried a firearm all the time. So CIB detectives carrying, and they go to all the serious jobs. I never used to rack. I never used to put one up the spout, as they say, because I feared my gun would go off.
Right.
I just didn't have that confidence to be able to. I mean, my colleagues ex-colleagues would be sitting there going, "You didn't rack it."
Right.
Because I just don't like guns.
Mm.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Does that extend to conflict? Are you somebody who doesn't like conflict, who basically was in a career with a high risk of very violent conflict? I've gone through. You've opened up a whole can of worms there. Quite prematurely, actually. We've gone from Capris.
Let's go straight to it.
Yeah.
I've gone through a huge change in the last 2 years personally. So I was always an angry person, which is where all that driving comes from and everything. Anger, not knowing myself, not knowing that my brain was different, that I was neurodivergent, and just not able to fit in, not able to learn, not able to do all sorts of things. And always trying to impress, always trying to show off, always trying to try and fit in, I guess. And recently I've gone through a bit of a transformation, and it's changed my life, and I wish I'd known all of this stuff much earlier in life. Right. So I don't like conflict. I guess some will say I'm left-leaning with my brain, but I'm not. I've recently, and I'm yet to confirm it, but I'm an empath, which means that I see people's emotions and feel them.
Yeah.
So it's not just being empathetic or empathic, it's an empath. And whenever I find another empath and you can see them and they see you, it's weird. And you tear up.
Right.
You cry. You sort of don't cry, but you tear up. And it's happened a couple of times. In fact, it happened just on Friday. And I was talking to somebody and I looked at them and it was just tears in their eyes. And I went, oh, wow. I didn't see it in you, but you're one as well. Yeah, it's fascinating.
This has already taken an incredibly interesting turn. I feel like throwing all this away that I've prepared, because we've sort of gone down this amazing path already. So while it's still fresh in our minds, we can come back to the icebreakers later if we even want to, but may I ask in what way you are neurodivergent and how you found out and how it's affected you?
Yeah, so I'm undiagnosed, but ADHD, and I was writing my third book on worry, on, anxiety as a worry is the term, and it's a double entendre. And I was going through some of these things, and particularly around children and the causes of anxiety. And there's always an underlying cause, one part of it I talk about, is it one or is it two or is it three things that could be underlined, and there's co-existence that we have with things that happen in our head. And I started doing some more study, and I started thinking, this is me. Now, my mum had kept my report cards, bless her, and I went back through them. Won't sit still, needs to focus, continually punished, etc., etc., etc. This is at primary school. And I was thinking, that's me. Mm. And then so I went online and did a couple of those, I mean, you shouldn't really rely on those online, right? So, but then it was really confirmed, excuse me, really confirmed for me when my daughter, who is an educator in special ed, asked me a question. It was a mathematics question. And I came back with the answer straight away. And then I thought for a moment and went, no, it's not. And she said, yeah, you've got ADHD. It's a particular trick question they do. Now, I can't remember how it actually goes, but it's something like 2 times 3 is 22. And I said, no, it's not. It's 23. And then I went, ooh, it's 6. And she just goes, yeah. It's something like that, the way they do it, and it's because the brain jumps.
Fascinating.
And it jumps to a different part in the way it works. I thought I was numerically dyslexic. I came up, found this term, went, oh, that's me, that'll do.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no, it's something that's there. So that was the journey at the start of it. And then I undertook a diploma in positive psychology. 7 years it took me to do it because I wasn't ready. But in this last year, I've completed it, and you must do all of the exercises that you're going to be, taking your clients through. And wow, did it change me? Wow. And I started to learn about myself, and then I've looked at my values, and then I looked at my triggers. And when you go and expose yourself, and when you are open to doing these things, you learn so much about yourself.
It's incredible, isn't it? Because it is such a good thing that there is so much more acceptance and understanding, but also diagnoses of ADHD and autism now, right? It's just, there's so many more people being diagnosed with it now than previously, which has been good in so many ways, removing stigma, and it's so great for those people and to have put a spotlight on it. And I've sort of had a similar experience with a close member of my family who was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD, and we went through the testing and everything like that, and just when that happens, just so much clicks into place because you think this is why such and such happened, this is why you worked this way and studied this way and responded to this, and obviously then you have this moment of thinking, I wish we had known this 20 years ago because we could have address things differently and take a different approach to things. And then, of course, it makes you think, well, what about me? And you start having a bit of a look at yourself and sort of asking some questions of yourself. But, I mean, it's a great thing, I think, for all communities that there's so much more awareness and recognition now.
There is, and a lot of people will come up to me in the workshops I run and say, I'm all, what do they say? I haven't got ADHD. I'm... the inability to read, the dyslexia. Now, that's another one that went undiagnosed for years and years. It was, you're a dummy, you're silly, you're stupid, like I was told. And, some of them in my report cards, the teachers would actually write that, unintelligent. Well, my IQ is off the scale, I've been told. Because to get in the police, you have to do an IQ test, and I've done other for organisations, and it's IQ says, a high IQ says you have the ability to learn. But I wasn't shown how to learn differently.
Yeah, so you would have been one of those kids that having a teacher standing at the front of the room and talking at the students for 45 minutes, that did not work for you, I'm guessing.
No, it didn't. It didn't at all. I didn't resonate with me. I had no understanding of so rote learning was the only way that I knew how to do this, and that wasn't working for me. It did not work at all. And it wasn't until I reached the police college that somebody showed me how to learn. I learned my own way to learn. And a master's and 3 diplomas later, I sit before you wondering if I should do some more because I've got a strong imposter syndrome. I have a little bit of OCD. So I'm not just any one thing. I'm a number of things. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah. If you see the cups are always, that's not quite on there, but that'll annoy me.
Nice. Right.
I've got a little, just a little itch on my nose at the moment, which I really want to scratch, and that annoys me.
Scratch. I give you.
So this is the way it works, right? And I have all these little things, and I'm wondering what that car's doing there.
Right. Well, I guess I could just keep you in suspense and not tell you, but it is purely decorative. So there you go. Question.
Okay, great. And so when you understand your quirks and your little foibles, I call them, life is good for me. I'm so content right now.
Right.
I really am. And, going back to my days of being, why was I a builder? Well, the fact that I was a builder was because I was getting higher qualifications in carpentry at school. So to be in life, I had to do well. The only way I knew how to do well was to do what I know. And so I hated construction.
Right.
Absolutely loathed it.
And how long did you work in it for?
20 years.
Right.
Became a construction manager. This plays into everything.
When you look back at it, do you see that as 20 wasted years or 20?
No. Because what it gave me was skills. Right. It gave me skills to be able to think, but my brain thinks differently, which was great with construction because no building, this place, that we're sitting in right now, I can see how much work has gone into it. It's not square walls. It's been designed particularly well. And they would have had problems building it. And so having the ability to think differently, I had that ability to be able to come up with solutions very, very quickly, which got me thinking there's something here inside my head. But all these little things just come to mind. When I was studying for my master's, I would do a brain dump of everything that I wanted to do. I would then research and started with that and then a few things. And then I could pick paragraphs up and visualise 20 pages down where it would fit in. Right. Because when you bring focus, I can bring intense focus. Everything which again was great for crisis negotiating.
Yeah.
Got somebody standing on the wrong side of the handrail of a bridge who really do want to do it, but they don't know where they are. Now, this is the fascinating thing about the brain as well, and people don't realise when somebody's struggling, they just want it all over. Or, no, it's nothing like that because they don't know they're there half the time. Literally, they don't know how they got to where they are. Right. And so you've got to unwind all that. You've got to pull it all apart. And the ability to think on your feet, I could do it with ease, which made me think, why is this so simple for me? But it's because I can come from a different angle to it. You always look for the hook. The hook is something that keeps us going when you're dealing with somebody who might be, wanting to take their own life, suicidal. And one of the people I was speaking with, their hook was the children, but that was the reason why they also wanted to take their life, was because they had been abusing those children.
Right.
So you have to learn to think on your feet quickly, and he just looked at me and said, so what are my options? Well, you're going to go to jail, but you'll get some help in there if you want it. And maybe you could come out and make it up to them. Maybe you could do that and never do what you've done ever again, and repay, and maybe get involved in something that you'll be able to do even more towards, work with survivors of abuse or something like that.
And that is a rare skill, to think that quickly with such a constructive, fair, but at the same time it's a bit of a dose of reality. I mean, that is a rare skill. I'm guessing that's why one of the key factors why you did as well as you did in that career.
I think so, and now I'm doing it even more so. I've developed a couple of new programs that aren't even out there at the moment, and even the de-escalation work I do, the techniques people find astonishing. They go, wow, it's not active listening skills, it's not what I used to do in the police. I developed them for during lockdowns for the MIQ facilities. They were developed particularly for that, knowing the brain works in three, so it's one sentence, three parts. And it just took off. And so now this one is about understanding yourself, and it came from my own learning about myself, and I developed it for one organisation in particular, and it was for team building. But now we've grown it to become part of taking people through change and understanding your triggers, understanding your values. And we'll take them through these self-awareness quiz where I mess with all of the answers and really mess with people. Now, how did I come up with that? I don't know.
Right. Because
most of it, that one around self-awareness is a quiz. And I mess with the answers. The answer becomes a question. The question becomes the answer part the way through. And there's only B's and C's. There's no A's and D's. The last two questions have been a repeat of the first two questions, and a whole lot of other things happen in it. And so I say to people when they're going through this, think about your thoughts. But I put some rules up, and I mess with the rules. No, capital N, capital O, talking, to put them in a position of, is it an exam and is it a... And so when you do it yourself, you realise that you've got these thoughts that you don't even think about. So it brings out those innate behaviours we have. Now, how did I come up with something like that?
Well, we'll sort of talk a little bit more about that work and the work you do with other organisations in a little bit. But while we're sort of loosely on following on your comments about negotiation and crisis negotiation, as I mentioned, you were recently, as we record this today, in the news with the Tom Phillips case.
Yes.
What can you tell us about your role there and how you came to be involved?
It started with the mayor of Waitomo reached out to, I think it was the media, and I was interviewed for it about it and about what he had said. He said it needs to be somebody to break the deadlock, as he phrased it. And I was being interviewed on that, and out of nowhere, I was asked, would you be that person who would be willing to try and be the mediator to break that deadlock? And I thought for just a split second, I said yes, to break the deadlock, because something had to be done that was different. Right, so the traditional method of only working with the family, of only following the processes, and having the children's welfare is paramount, right? But the longer these things go on for, the worse it's going to be for their welfare. And so I said yes, and I tried to, and I caught up, chatted to the family, to the mum and dad a few times, and got to know them reasonably well. But it was just to try and get through to that other. And when other parts of the media found out, and people who were making podcasts about it, and people who wanted to do documentaries from over the world, people flying in from the UK and everywhere else, would have just driven Tom back underground, right? So it was unhelpful. I had the advice of a King's Counsel as well, so it wasn't just me. And I was, asking them. I knew people. I was talking with people who were still in the police, who were giving me information as well to help me. But the community was quite closed down by this stage, and they'd had enough as well, right? So of everybody coming into their small community, and which is a tight-knit community, 100%. And so that's why I tried to get involved, and then in the end I pulled out and said, look, I'm not going to do this anymore, simply because, one, it's too much work, and two, I'm getting hamstrung at every turn by mainly good-intentioned media who thought they could do it better.
Yeah. No, I could see how that would be a problem. Was there... I know I don't want to ask questions that you can't answer for various reasons, but were you always concerned that it would end the way it ended? Yeah,
I said that on record. The longer something goes for, the higher the likelihood of an ending that's negative. That's the way it is, right? So for example, let's go back to what I talked about before with negotiation. So when you're doing a negotiation, a crisis intervention, for example, you have an hour. You have a 1 hour window to engage with them, and then a 3 hour. So if it goes for longer than 3 hours, it's highly likely it's a negative outcome. And so you get these windows of opportunity, and life's like that. The longer something goes on, the more ingrained we become. And so it's just human nature and understanding. So I do a lot of my work is founded and grounded in neuroscience, understanding how the brain works. So it underpins psychology essentially. And when you understand that, you can see how it was happening. So I wanted to get involved to break that, to come up with a peaceful outcome. And yes, some people took me to task on that, but the majority of people, I was getting messages from all sorts of places saying, good luck, I hope it works. We really want to get these kids out safe, because if that's what the focus was on the children, and rightly so. And we do know that I'm sure the police at the forefront of their mind was trauma to the children. There is a fine balance with all negotiations. Negotiations in life, the longer it goes on, the higher, Sure. So at some point you have to take a risk. And the risk is causing a little bit of disquiet as opposed to longer term but smaller disquiet, if that makes sense. Yeah. So let's look at trauma. If you go through a sudden shock of something, with that, it's a fleeting car crash, right? So car crash. Most people will recover from a car crash and from the trauma that comes with it, because it's short-lived, you get some help and the brain recovers. If something such as, well, let's talk about it, maybe abuse or learning, let's look at, you don't know how to learn. So that long-term struggle really takes a toll.
Yeah.
And so that's, the longer the toll, the more difficult it is to recover from. So it's a balance between, shall we go in hard and end it and then face the consequences, and perhaps something goes wrong and someone dies, and heaven forbid one of the children, or do we try and find an opportunity with what we know?
Very difficult decision to make based on what you're saying about the longer it goes, the more likely there's going to be a negative outcome. Again, I don't want to ask a question that's difficult to answer or you don't want to answer, but obviously a very long road ahead for the children.
It's going to be massive. That's where the beauty of psychology comes in, and psychologists and probably psychotherapists would be even better. Getting therapy, the title says it all. It is going to be, because particularly for the younger ones, it's their formative years, and the eldest daughter going through, the puberty and the need for friends, and the older you get up into and starting to lead into your teenage years becomes vital, because between, I think it's the ages of 13 and 19 is the biggest growth in our brain,
right? And
we have to have peers around us.
So with that in mind, and perhaps this ties with your witness protection work as well, would it be better for them to stay in the community that they've always known, they've largely known, or would it be better for them to make a completely fresh start, say overseas, where they have none of that baggage, terrible term to use, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. If I go back to the work that I do now, so everyone's going through struggles at the moment, and it's a legacy of lockdown, right? So that's overwhelming evidence on that. And so if we go back to the basics of our life, if we stick with food, shelter, sleep, talk, read, write, the basics of human connection and the way the brain works, and if we just tweak little parts of that, we will recover much quicker, right? So because we're getting dopamine and a few things like that. But the longer if we go hard out, if we move somebody, or, people say, you should go surfing, or you should go horse riding, or you should go fishing, or if you do all those things, it's worse for your brain.
Why's that? Because
you become overwhelmed. It's completely new. So the brain runs in neural pathways. It runs in patterns of behaviour. It runs in the known. And it's all known now that if 60 to 80 days to change a habit, unless you do small tweaks within the same pathway. And those little tweaks, whenever you acknowledge it, you get that little shot of dopamine, lasts a split second, and it reinforces that new pathway. And then you just keep doing it like that. So coming back to your question, if we take people out of the known and move them somewhere else, and I know this from witness protection, it's a massive, massive change for them. And they find it hard to settle in to find their place.
Yeah.
So taking it back to this, would it be... my thoughts are it would be best if they could go back to there. That would be, or something similar to it, right? So a similar size place. But if you can surround them with people that they know that were there when they were young, then that's the chance for recovery rather than something completely new. Because whenever you do anything new, the brain is heightened. It's in a way, it's like when we go overseas. You know, our longest, strongest memories are, well, our negative things when the amygdala sparks up. So that's around 80% of our memories of bad things. Holidays are the best remembered happy events in our life because we're super aware and super awake and it's all super new. So it's understanding how that works, then it can help with the kids. So I'd like to see them be able to go back into the community where they were and for people to leave them alone.
And that will be the key thing, isn't it? Because for many, many years, and I kind of say this with a sense of shame as a former journalist, because I have done it in my previous life, but for many years to come, journalists will always want to talk to them. And there will probably never be a time when they're not sought after to tell their story, you know, and their side of things. And you know, you are really asking the tide to stop by saying, journalists, please don't do that, because they always will. It's a sad fact of life, isn't it?
There will be one person who will want to get the story. There's always that one that, you know, and I can see why. I mean, we're born curious. You know, curiosity is a big thing with humans, and lots of people also want to know. And I remember growing up, the Lawson twins. Now, they were a phenomenon, right, in New Zealand, and they were in the magazines, and they were just such a celebrity. And after a while, everyone went, we're all good now. And they left them alone, right? And so they've gone on to do other things, and you wouldn't know where they are. So the curiosity factor, I think if we got it out of the way,
well, that is the argument.
If we get it out of the way and bring everything out, right? So it's the old story of mea culpa. When you make a mistake, get it out there. Don't the death of 1,000 cuts, all of that stuff, that right? Get it out there.
That is the counter argument.
And it disappears.
Yep, and that is, again, I say this with shame, this is one of the tools you use as a journalist, that you make an argument like that. Do the interview with us. We'll give you a friendly ear. We'll give you a fair hearing. You can be involved in the editing. We won't make you look bad. And then all the other media will be off your back. And knowing full well that that is probably a pipe dream. Because if anything, it creates more appetite. We've been scooped by... the Daily Bugle. Now we've got to match their story. So you've got to go even harder. So even if they do,
and let's see if we can come up with a little bit of dirt as well, right?
You've got a new angle. We've got to get
we've got to find something that's different and to scoop the other person.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody in the country wishes them well, obviously, and I do hope that they can be left alone, and especially bearing in mind what you say now about them being in familiar surroundings being the best thing for them. So, look,
provide those surroundings are safe and secure.
100%.
Right, and so provide they're put with the right people. And we know that family is usually the best place until you look at the family, and then it's not always the case.
Very true, very true. Probably a good point to just move away from that specific case. In terms of witness protection generally, is that a very small operation in New Zealand? The question I guess I really have around that is, it is a cliche to say New Zealand's a village, right? Everybody knows everybody else. So that must be a real challenge for witness protection, because sooner or later somebody must say, hey, I actually thought I saw Bob the other day when I was visiting Gisborne or something like that.
It is very much like that. It's you'll be surprised at how many people are on the program.
Right.
You would be surprised.
What's the numbers we talking?
Well, there'd be usually around 90 to 100 people. But at any given time, that's active as in they're not really active, they're on the books. Right. And they do sometimes get taken off the books, or if they want to come off the books. But isn't it, it's fascinating the way it works, that New Zealanders are such a forgiving people. Like, we've had people who've been on the program have gone back to the little village where they grew up and Some have been, some of gang members have been gone back and welcomed back into the gang that they were giving evidence against. Yeah, it's fascinating the way it works, but it's a big country if you want it to be a big country. And hiding in plain sight is the way to do it. It's very sophisticated. Without giving anything away, it's a hugely sophisticated. Everything you see in the movies is what we do here.
Well, that was obviously a question I was going to ask.
Everything you see in the movies is what happens here.
Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you have 100% success rate? Did you ever have a case where somebody had their new identity blown and
There was a local paper and newspaper who had they go out and they get community, people from the community talking. They put their photo up there.
Yeah, right. Oh wow!
And in the community today, we're speaking with Barry.
Wow!
And Barry's got a smile, and Barry's on the program. Barry
with his occupied farmer Te Awa Mutu.
What are you doing, Barry?
Goodness.
Yeah, so and on those occasions, sometimes they're actually taken off the program because the program is hugely successful and very secure. And anyone that does anything against it, they get taken off the program. And while at my time I was there for I think 2.5 years, 2 people were taken away from the program. They were removed from the program because of their continued behaviour of offending. So you have to completely change, full stop, everything about you.
Is there a criteria for being eligible for the program? And is it ever used as a bargaining tool, like in the movies where they say, we'll give you a new identity if you testify as crime boss?
No, because that's what do they call it, agent provocateur.
Right.
So it has to be a very, very serious crime, has to be a valid threat against your life, and there's a couple of other criteria which I can't mention. Yeah. And so it has to fall in with that. Now, there are ways that you can get on the program subject to, I think it's the Attorney General or Solicitor General. I think Attorney General will make some, I guess can make it a bit easier for some people, but there are some quite strict criteria. You must give evidence.
Right.
So that's the big thing.
Does it have to end up in a conviction?
No, you must give evidence. Yeah, so... But you can imagine most of the people that are on the program have not the best. They have a blemished background, and often it's a last resort for them.
Yeah, right.
But they don't get. Some of them go to jail, but they are in a specific facility.
Right.
Yeah, they're kept away from the main population in prison. So yeah, that
must be extremely stressful for that person, I imagine, to be in prison knowing that if it's discovered that you've got that jacket on you, life's going to get very, very hard for you.
Yeah, there's others in there with you that are probably the same. And so it's a facility that has people all for that are in prison for various reasons and all have that same risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And others that are in the community, is it the movie stereotype, you get the new house, the new job, the new name?
You do.
Really?
Yeah, you get the new name, you get the new identity, but your real identity stays in the background.
Right. Have you ever seen that episode of The Simpsons where they try and give Homer a new identity for testifying against somebody and he cannot get it? Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
I have seen it. I remember because I think it came out when I was... Yeah, so I ran the practical side of the program. There's a lot of technical stuff was done in Wellington. It's a hell of a thing to do. It really is. And, we're very good at these things, and it's been here for a while. In the early days, there was a few glitches, but these days it's a robust...
Wow.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit like our police. We are world leaders in a lot of what we do.
This is not something I plan to ask, but I will ask anyway, since we just said the P word, police. Do you have a lot of sympathy for the job police have to do these days? It seems from an outside point of view they're doing a very, very difficult job with resources that probably aren't sufficient for that very, very difficult job. Respect for authority and police is not at an all-time high. Do you sort of look at that work and feel a bit of sympathy for your former colleagues?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've been joking on social media a little bit around. They haven't asked me to go back yet. I'd jump.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a fantastic job.
Wow.
It is. If you ever want a challenge of changing your life, do you do it to do good? Well, that's the intention when you go in there. But essentially what you're going in there for is the camaraderie, is for doing the right thing for people. You don't see, you become very cynical because you're seeing victims of crime, you're dealing with offenders. Everybody lies. Even your boss lies. Right, you just become so cynical about it. But I'll tell you what, the changes you make for people, those individual people, that one person you'll come across and change their life. I remember stopping somebody once, and he had the full facial tattoos, and he had his 2 kiddies in the back seat, no seatbelt, no registration, no warrant, all of that sort of stuff. And I said to him, look, can I see your license? No, I haven't got one. I said, you're disqualified, aren't you? Because they never look at you. It's just they look straight away. They never look back. So, all right, well, there's 2 options I can see here. One, I'll take you back to the station and we'll process you probably. You could do a bit of time, I guess. The babies will be all right. Well, social welfare will look after them, no problem. Or you go home and never drive this car again and you look after those babies. Now, I don't know if I said it out of fear, but I'd like to think I said it out of, because he was a gang member, I could tell. I think I said it out of genuine concern for the kids, because I had kids. You always reflect that. And he looked at me in the eye, and I swear he had a tear in it, but I doubt that's the case. He said, are you serious? I said, I'm dead serious. And I said, I live in that house right there, and I'll see you. He goes, I'd like to go home. Wow. Now, I never saw him again, ever. Whether he's disappeared, and I don't know. That's an opportunity that I'll never forget, that I had to possibly change somebody's life.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And it's a sort of personal aside here, I guess, really, but I was a journalist for 20 years, and I've sort of been out of it long enough now that I've can compartmentalize.
You're not one of them.
I'm not one of them anymore. Like sometimes I still am. But during that 20 years, I was often asked by people, what would you do if you weren't a journalist? And I always thought, well, actually, I would probably be a detective. And that's because I think there's similarities and transferable skills between the two. Obviously, you ask a lot of questions. Obviously, you're trying to dig to the heart of the matter and uncover the truth and build a story / case, whatever it might be. But I also felt, and you've just reinforced that really what you live for in journalism was 2 things: the scoop, because then everybody's patting you on the back and saying, good work, buddy, great exclusive, you really killed them with that one. But the other thing that you do it for is the story that actually does some good. Yeah. And they don't come along very often, but now and then you have the chance to tell a story that actually changes someone's life for the better. And you feel incredibly good about it. The best stories that I remember that I did weren't necessarily the biggest ones, but they were ones where a poor family or whatever it might have been got a real benefit from it, and you just feel like, if I hadn't been there, that would not have happened. That's a really nice feeling. And then the third thing that I think is really comparable between the two, and I'm sorry to waffle, but I've always felt that journalists and police share that same cynicism, and also I've always felt they shared humour as a defence mechanism. Now, it's very black humour. It's real gallows humour.
It's not good stuff.
It's not good stuff because you see horrible things. Cops obviously see far worse than most journos, but you're still looking through crime books quite often and evidence books, and you're seeing some pretty horrendous stuff. And it does become a way of coping to joke about it. And I did want to ask, I don't know where this fits in with everything else we're talking about, but is that a healthy response or a very unhealthy response? It
is indeed. Humour generates so many endorphins, dopamine, all of the good neurotransmitters we want to get. Humour is the best. Now, dark humour you've got to be careful with and do it with the right person, but 100%. And what it does is, so emotions are going to come out. Now, emotions are processed in the same part of the brain. Whether it's bad things, good things, it's the same part of the brain. And so generating that laughter and that good stuff, that's the amygdala. The amygdala still enlarges and it still pipes up, but it's a positive
Right.
It's a positive thing, right? And it generates all of these good neurotransmitters, which reduces stress. It's a great stress reliever. At the night time, I always watch whether it's an animal video or something. I've stopped doing it now, and I sort of look back with regret. But those unfortunate accidents that people have,
fail videos.
I love them.
Love them. So.
I love them, and I look at you. That's me there, and so the brain lights up all over the place. And afterwards it relaxes. Whereas, because you don't get the stress hormone.
I'm glad you say this, because I don't know if you ever completely leave it behind. Like, even now, my wife and I will be watching something at night, and it could be a story that we're watching on some true crime program, or just the news actually, and there's something on there that's something very unfortunate has happened to someone, and I will still make a quip about it because it's so uncomfortable, right? You've just seen somebody going through this terrible situation, and my way of dealing with that is to make a wisecrack. And she'll just look at me sometimes like, why would you say that? But it's my way of just dealing with this very uncomfortable truth to me that
I find myself apologising to my wife sometimes for things that just come out. And there's these terrible things around, the Gaza and all these things that we're seeing on TV. The way that I overcome it, and it comes out sometimes, and I thought if people could hear me after the work I do, and if they could hear it, they'll go, really?
I know the feeling.
But it's a stress release. It's a way of dealing with extreme trauma. Now, we tend to do that. The people who do that are people who are generally empathic. They've got deep empathy for people.
Right.
They've got deep, big hearts. A lot of people have been saying to me recently, I wish I could become stronger and harder and tougher. No, don't.
Right.
Don't. Be you and become more. It's not sensitive.
Yeah.
It's just that you've got a heightened emotional understanding of other people. And so sometimes the way to deal with that is to make dark, sick, black jokes about it, this horrible dark, to relieve the stress in your brain of this whole, I see people who get angry at times or push back on some of the things I say. Well, they're the ones that need this.
Right.
They're the ones that actually need to, they're putting the roadblocks up. We protect ourselves by putting this barrier in, don't we? And so that's a way of dropping that barrier back down again and becoming human.
Before we pick up on some of your more recent work in that area and how you use that to help an incredible range of organisations, actually. I had a look at the list on your website. It's mind-blowing. So just a couple of quick things before we get into that. First of all, I think you were basically DPS for one of our Prime Ministers, or?
Yeah, so I was with the VIP Protection Squad. It's in Auckland, so it only deals with the security of Auckland people.
Right.
And so I was what they call the D Senior, so I was in charge of the actions on the ground, if you like. Yeah, so Prime Minister Helen Clark was.
I was going to ask if you could tell us which
one.
Yeah,
no, Helen. Yeah, and so we're connected on Facebook and all that.
Right.
She didn't know who I was because I was in the background. The actual troops did all the work, and then initially John Key, and that's when I left and went to the 111 call centre after that. But yeah, fascinating. It's like witness protection. It's what you see in TV. Yeah. People say, "Oh, but you wear those things in your ear with the." We want you to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
We want you to see them. We want you to see the bulge under the jacket too, if that's okay.
Yeah. Visible policing. Were they both good to work with in their different ways?
Yeah, in their different ways, 100%. I didn't do any of the actual work itself. I know that
JK would have been a fairly chill character.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was. I remember the first thing I heard about that, though. So you have to have a property somewhere near the Prime Minister when they're in residence, and that's where the protection team go into, so that they've got that immediate. There's lots of electronic surveillance and all sorts of things. So you're really putting yourself into a difficult place when you want to put yourself up to be in public, in the public like this. And I remember one of them saying, I said, what's it like with the new Prime Minister? We had pizza. Mm. He said he came out he was no secret, in the pool house. That's where the team were. Mm. Hey, we're getting pizza. Do you want some? Mm.
Yeah, I think he actually even shouted journos sometimes on election night, things like that.
Yeah, so that's the sort of, Don Brash was another that was around the same time, and, they were just good people. Yeah, good people.
Tell me about, very quickly, because I do want to make sure we've got time to talk about your current work, but head of security at Commonwealth Games and Olympics, I imagine that is 2 weeks of living on your nerves.
It is. So for the Delhi Commonwealth Games, when you go in to do the role with the athletes, there's somebody there. So I had somebody with me who was coming out of it, and then I was coming in to take over that role. And it's a heck of a job. You don't sleep much. You're always ahead of the game. You have to, and for Delhi it was quite a high security risk. So I was the person who was nominated to go out and go on the train to Taj Mahal and places to do all the sightseeing first. So the first train that ever ran was nothing but police security from every country.
Right.
So we had a blast, but you had to do it to make sure, and what happens at this stop and what happens at that stop, what's the security going to be like. It's very, very cool. You have more fun than any other role, because the athletes, they're very different, very cool people. Athletes of the high intense, high performance sport. You see what they go through. Watching a boxer in Delhi in, I don't know what is, 32, 35 degrees with all they're like padded out and on a bike for 2 hours to lose 1 kilo before weigh-in.
Yeah.
That's determination, right?
Absolutely. All right, enough about the past. Fascinating though it is, and we could probably go for another hour on all that. Tell us about what you do now. Tell us, first of all, Warren International is your business. So give us the water cooler summary of Warren International. And then what I really want to get into is that a lot of businesses have been doing it tough for what feels like a long time now. Employee management and relationships is a big part of that. So what I think, if we could try and do that, let's get into Warren International first of all, water cooler summary, and then let's get into some practical stuff for the workplace.
Well, the elevator pitch, we help people. And so a lot of the work we do these days is around exactly that and getting through the troubled times we do. So 3 pillars. So it's effective communication, it's personal safety, and it's coping skills. So we don't use the term resilience, because resilience is set up in your first 1,000 days, et cetera, et cetera. So coping skills. And that's what we support businesses. So WARN is an acronym, Wellness, Awareness, Resilience, Negotiation. And we go into organisations that are having challenges and develop programs for them at no cost. We charge them for the program, but no cost to develop it. That's why we've got such a wide group of organisations we work with. What's your challenge? What are you going through? What are you finding trouble? And we'll develop a program for it to help you.
And what I found really interesting, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the take that I got from having a bit of a read on the website about how to deal with challenges and crises, I just found that really interesting, and how you can effectively retrain your mind to cope. And one thing that sort of stood out for me was a line that says, our brain is hardwired to seek out negative things as a way of protecting us from danger. Now, can you explain that to me? Because to me, that seems almost counterintuitive, right? I mean, wouldn't you would expect people to seek positive experiences and positive emotions as a way of coping with life's hardships, but it's actually the flip.
So the stem is hardwired to look for danger to keep us safe. And it does so by either jumping on it or running from it, fight or flight. And it does that on 2 things. It does it based on our past, or when something is different and of a sufficient level to make us stop and go, what? And that's what the brain does. So it's working on our past. So while I'm talking with you and while everyone's listening to this and watching this, they're comparing what I'm saying to themselves. You cannot not do it. The brain compares. It compares where I am now to where I've been in my life, etc. Every piece of information that comes into our brain goes to the amygdala. The amygdala is clusters of neurotransmitters in the shape of almonds. First of all, they tag your thought with an emotion. So whether any piece of information, whether it's from sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch, goes to the brain, it's tagged with the amygdala. It then goes back to our memory for reference in our past, our hippocampus, and then it's supposed to come forward to the prefrontal cortex with a final decision to be made. This is where logic sits. It's called the executive function. If the brain senses danger or we have danger from our past, we go into fight or flight and we stay in our automatic response. So we've either trained ourselves, and the very first thing you ever did in any situation is called your anchoring bias. You will do again and again and again. Yeah. And so when you understand that, it's much easier to not fight going into fight or flight. You work with it.
So give us some practical examples of that, because I can probably hear a few people out there sort of head spinning a wee bit at this point. So how does that work in practical terms? Like, obviously a lot of businesses, including MTA business, customer facing, they've got a workforce under pressure. You've got angry customers, you've got possibly grumpy employees, perhaps you've got demanding bosses. Does this have a conflict resolution role? So give us a practical example that might affect, say, a business that's got a really shitty customer in their face, for example. Is that a situation where you would use
Yes, so it's about controlling yourself first, right, and then following the person's lead. So here's a simple example. I'm going to mention some words and I'm going to trigger people, change their mood, right? So I'm not going to trigger them as in trigger them. I'm going to change everyone that's listening to this and probably your mood in an instant by mentioning words.
Okay.
You ready, Simon?
Yeah.
So if I was to mention...
No, we've got to call it there. That's enough for today. No. Go for it. All right. Okay.
Come on. You've got to go through this. So if I was to mention words like, I don't know, restructure, redundancy, bankruptcy, divorce, heart attack, cancer, mental health. So somewhere in there is a word that you've gone, huh? So you heard it, the amygdala tagged it, you went back to your memory, you thought of that situation, therefore you didn't come here to logic to say it's Lance talking, calm down. What happened? You got cortisol, the stressor hormone, right? You didn't get adrenaline, you got that. Right, to clear your head, you're going to do it right now, and everyone out there is going to do it as well because they're probably all in the same boat. You're going to take a big deep breath and sigh as hard as you can. Big deep breath, go. Sigh. Now try and think of something. Apart from food or what you love dearly, there'll be nothing there.
That is true. That is actually true.
So you clear your head. Now, you can't really do that when you're in front of somebody. Right. An angry customer, the last thing you want to do is go... So what a sigh does is reset your brain. So all you do now, if you get triggered by somebody saying something, breathe out. So just breathe out slowly and just keep breathing out. And now you're calm. You can't not be. When you breathe out, your heart rate goes down. When you breathe in, your heart rate goes up. Now, just understanding the basics of physiology gives you the ability. So when somebody comes in and starts yelling at you, you know, this is the wrong part. I've been here 4 times and you've gone out and you've got it. And I've had to drive down here and it's 5 Ks each way.
Yeah.
You breathe out first and you wait till they finish. And then you can say something like, it is frustrating. That should never have happened. Well, let's go back over and start again about what you're after. You just validate them and let them go again.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to stop somebody having a second go at you. You can't. We actually have to vent 3 times.
So I guess there's a sort of general school of thought that there's no place for emotions in the workplace, right? Everything should be professional and everything should be serious and considered and rational. But is that actually the case? I mean, and also is it in denial of it just sort of denies the reality?
So what happens is you're causing harm to your staff. There's something called emotional dissonance where when we have to try and fight our natural responses, it plays, you know, you can end up in quite a distressed state. So and it builds up, you end up with emotional fatigue.
So what does a happy workplace look like?
It looks like where where everybody can be themselves and have no fear about that. I've never been in such a content place, and I have to say the programs we're running right now, the feedback has been amazingly overwhelming. I put myself out there. I show my vulnerability only because I know that most people have the same thing. You know, who puts you under the most pressure? Simon? You do.
Right. Yep.
Who do you talk to the most in your day?
Myself.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got a voice inside your head then, right?
But how do you marry the fact that everybody can be themselves with the fact that personalities clash, the fact that some people don't like each other?
Right. So that's where I get into the values, to our values. When you understand your own values, and it's not just looking at cards and saying, oh, this is my value, or picking out words. There's a structured way of doing it. Now, so in our programs, I trigger people, I take them through self-awareness, and I mess with this whole empathy. It's a quiz on empathy, and I mess with it completely. And all I ask is that you think about your thoughts as you go through this, and there's a whole lot of little tricks in it. There's C, 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 B. Did you go back and look to see that all the C's were wrong, or did you make sure or did you? All right, so you think about it. Now that's your innate behaviours that are coming out. So when you do the quiz, I'm triggering you a little bit. So now you're aware of your own behaviours. Then I take them into triggers and how to manage those. And then we learn about values. And then I just say to them, right, look at your 5 values. Now go back and tell me why that was a trigger for you. It wasn't that person's behaviour. It was because they went against your personal values.
Right.
You counted it. Now have another look at your 5 values. There will be one value in there that you can use for that situation to replace the value that's strongest for you. You know, you're yelling at me, so therefore you're disrespectful. My strong value is respect. But you might also have another value of cooperation. And you just, when you understand that, when you understand yourself and people, I mean, you think about the best bosses you've ever had, the best leaders you've ever had. They knew you. They knew people. And it's not just remembering your name and your children and everything else like that. It's they understand people and the way people react.
And that's a very important distinction to make, I think, because I think there is a tendency amongst some managers, leaders, to think that they've ticked that box by exactly that, knowing your wife's name and what school your kids go to, right? But it isn't that, is it? It's knowing you as a person, what makes you tick, what you respond to. Yeah, there's a big difference there between knowing someone's LinkedIn page.
100%. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, and he said this. When was the last time you heard a boss say, I don't know? That's vulnerability, right? I've got no idea. I say it all the time. Leaders want to lead, so they try and lead. Well, leaders speak last. You let people do the work. Get out of the weeds. Let them do their stuff and just steer the ship, right? So we think that we have to be first. Well, I'll tell you, in the police, the leaders are at the back.
Yeah, right.
The staff go forward so they can control them. You'll never see a leader out the front because you've lost control of your troops. You steer from the back. And so knowing these little things about people, think back to the best bosses you've ever had, as I say, they've always let you get on with it. Yeah. And if you've made a mistake, they tell you.
So, you mentioned before about COVID. Are we still living in the post-COVID shadow? I mean, I'm not talking about the disease itself. That's still out there. It's minimal, but it's we all know about that. But in terms of its long-lasting effect on the workplace, and I'm not necessarily talking financial here either, because we all know about that too. But what effect is it still having on business now, especially small to medium business?
It's lockdown. It was nothing to do with COVID. The perfect storm for our brain, if you wanted to upset anyone's brain, is to tell them to stay home, to isolate, not to socialise, to be careful when they do go out, and have the fear of death. And that put us into a tailspin. If you've got a dry mouth most of your day, headache that won't go away, random thoughts about your past, mood swings over your day, feeling overwhelmed on occasion, panic attacks are really common at the moment, having trouble getting to sleep, waking up 3 or 4 times a night, you're waking up every 2 hours if you are, having a thought when you go to bed and you dream it all night and you wake up in the morning thinking you never even slept. All of these are legacies from lockdown. Stay where you are. Be alone, be afraid. And what's happening now is the emotions are coming up. Anger is our default, unless you've learned differently. And it's hard not to learn differently. And so this whole, just being aware that it's not your fault, being aware that you can take control of this and that you can change your brain very, very quickly by going back to the basics of what I said before, of those 6 things. If you start, when something happens to you, talk about it, read some information about it, and then write yourself a plan to follow, and remember to read it, to make sure you read your plan. And if you also change your diet a little bit, start eating foods higher in serotonin. If you start eating more fruit, you'll feel much better and your brain will work better. If you get a better night's sleep, and we have a free sleep tips document that's available for anyone. It is 16 pages long. It's been validated by sleep clinics. Doctors are giving it out to patients. It's 16 pages long. It will put you to sleep just reading it. And if you focus on making home feel safe by fixing, tidying, rearranging one or two things at the end of every day before you go to bed, you'll get back into that mode and you'll recover very, very quickly. The brain wants certainty. It finds safety in certainty. So give it that certainty by going back to how the stem is wired. Maslow nailed it. Food, water, shelter, sleep,
right,
air.
What would you have done instead of lockdown?
Oh, never been asked that before, Simon. I would have probably tried to manage it according to the other side of the world. So the behaviours that we're seeing right now, we are 18 months behind the UK, we are 12 months behind the US, we are 6 months behind Australia as far as the human behaviour is going. Now, what we're seeing in the UK now is a lot of race-based hate from targeted towards immigrants, right? And so that's coming here and it's already started. So if we can, when instead of using lockdown, you can only work on the information you have. Right, so there's no blame for whatever government was in place. That's all they knew. But we had the ability, because that 18 months was the flow of the virus. So we could have gone straight back to say, right, they've been there for 12 to 18 months. What's working? And where's the evidence? In these things, you must go with evidence-based. You just can't go on ideology. And this is the problem with all governments globally, is they work on ideology, not on valid science. Yeah,
and unfortunately that lesson hasn't been learnt, and it's very evident in some countries around the world, unfortunately. I think we're probably sort of running out of time here, so I just want everybody to leave with a little bit of advice really from you on, what would be your words of advice? What would be your message to anybody listening? Nobody's got a perfect life. Everyone's got problems in their life. Everyone's got things that make them angry or sad or miserable or stressed or whatever it might be. Is it possible to have a universal message for people that might be listening?
Be as patient with yourself as you are with those around you. We beat ourselves up the worst, right? So that's why coming back to who put you under the most pressure yourself. When you make a mistake, who beat you up the worst? It's a safe mechanism for our brain to stay in that lane. Don't stay in your lane. Start taking that opportunity, but connection with people, connecting with others, understanding yourself. So if I was to put it down to one word, is be as patient with yourself as you are with others, but learn about yourself. When you go back to your childhood, when you go back to understanding something, talk with your parents if they're still around, get some report cards out, do a couple of online surveys, make sure that you're doing 3 or 4 or 5 of them. But once you understand who you are and more importantly your values, then be guided by those values. And if you follow those 5 values that are your true self and be able to display those, we'll get through this and many, many more. You'll get through life. You'll feel content.
That is a fantastic message to finish on. Thank you very, very much indeed. I have really enjoyed this. This has been bloody fascinating for me personally and really interesting, really educational. I hope everyone else feels the same way. And, to everybody listening and watching, I do suggest you check out the Warn website. There's a lot of very interesting information on there. I know Lance is happy to be approached. Even his cell phone is on there on the website, which is awesome. So if you found this interesting, I really do encourage everyone to look at the website, find out a little bit more about Lance, and drop him a line or give him a call if he can help you or your business in any way. I really do encourage it. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have and found it as interesting and educational. Don't forget to drop us a like and a follow and all that other social media stuff. But thank you very much indeed for joining us in the Fast Lane today. Thank you.